Hi, welcome back and thanks for joining me. So regular visitors to the channel will have seen that I recently did a video about this album here, The Cure, Songs of a Lost World, and I'll put a link up here and down in the description to that earlier video. And in that video I discussed the Showell black LP pressing cut, and also the Bernie Grundman cut, which was on, in the UK certainly, is on marbled grey vinyl. And I believe this isn't the same around the world. There's various different releases, but the crucial thing here is this one is cut by Bernie Grundman, and the regular one was cut by Showell using the Abbey Road half-speed mastered process, which I've discussed quite a few times on the channel. And I compared these to the stream on Qobuz, which was the first thing I heard of the album. Do check out the other video for a sort of more in-depth analysis of these two. But I mean, I really grown to love the album, and so I simply couldn't resist getting the alternative options. And this is the first one I just want to show you. So whereas the other two LPs are single LPs in non-gatefold jackets, this here, as you can see, is a beautiful gatefold, and you've got two LPs. Now, it is still cut at 33 RPM, so it's not a 45, but what we've got here is side A, Alone, and Nothing Is Forever, and then on side B, Fragile Thing and War Song, and so on and so forth. Drone, No Drone on side C with I Never Can Say Goodbye, and then finally on side D, All I Ever Am and End Song. So it's literally sort of 2 songs per side rather than 4 songs per side. So you have to jump up twice as often to change sides, but the promise is of improved sound quality, and that's something I will get on and discuss. I just want to discuss one other little thing which I'm going to show you. So I've left these original two in their shrink purely because, you know, the easiest way of telling them apart is the label which is on the shrink. But if I just peel that back a little, I'm not sure whether we can see this in this light. Yeah, we can. If you look at the black on the single LPs is much blacker than it is on this double one. In fact, the double one's cover is just, you know, it's nice because it's a gatefold, but it isn't actually printed on, it's not as nice cardstock, to be honest. Even though it's a little thicker possibly, it's not got as smooth a surface. So I think that's a little bit of a shame with the double one, that the cover isn't slightly nicer. Now, the other thing that's worthy of note, obviously you get 2 inner sleeves in the double one, which I'll just pull out and show you briefly. But you also get the poster, which you did get on the Bernie Grundman one, but not the regular single Showell cut LP. So that's the difference between the 3 vinyl versions. Now, what I've also got here, whereas before the only digital version I had was the Qobuz Stream, which is at $24.96, it's worth adding. So now I bought the Deluxe CD set, which folds out like this, which is quite lovely. And you've got the regular CD release, Red Book CD release, which is 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz sampling frequency. And you've got a disc 2 is the whole album without vocals, so an instrumental version of the album. The third disc here contains a 24.96, so like a hard copy, if you like, of what's streamed over Qobuz. And then what also is on there is a Dolby Atmos, I think they call it the immersive mix. Now, I don't actually have a Dolby Atmos system, so I've got no way of playing that. So as yet, I haven't heard that one, okay? But it's not really anything that particularly interests me, Dolby Atmos. So from the purposes of this, it's to get a hard copy of the CD version and a 2496 high resolution version. You'll note the cover on this is a little grayer too, like the double LP, but it's not as black as the background on the two single LP releases. Okay, and then last but by no means least, in fact I think in terms of coolness and cuteness, I think this takes the biscuit. This is the double cassette release, and in here, it's so long since I bought a cassette, I must admit, but there we go. There we've got the album on a cassette, very lovely. No Dolby encoding, which is kind of cool. And this being a double cassette, we've also got, the same as that deluxe CD version, we've got the instrumental version of the album. Okay, and yeah, I personally, I just think that's super cute. But anyway, I'm going to get on to the sound of this now. So, just to sort of approach this, how I think that one of you listeners would possibly approach this, is what I did was I started off by playing the stream on Qobuz, because that is, that's sort of, it's not free because you have to pay for Qobuz, but it's it's kind of the most accessible, if you like. So if we start with the Qobuz stream, I mean, the first thing is it's a very, very balanced sound, sort of bass to treble. The bass is full. The kind of the synthesized string sounds are clear. The drums have got a nice weight, and the sort of the fuzz bass. I wasn't entirely certain what it was on the first listens, because I've subsequently watched the video of the concert of the performance of this. So it's a very sort of like heavily played, distorted, overdriven fuzz bass guitar, if you like. That's probably the predominant instrument that you're hearing in a way. Things like the piano are quite veiled, and I'd suggest that some of the other instruments you don't even know are there, so you won't miss them. And the voice is nice, but it's sort of moderately opaque and moderately expressive, not the worst and not the best. Okay? Now, compared to that, what I did next is I played the regular CD, which is disc 1 in this set here. The CD is a little bit brighter than the streamed sort of 2496, and a little bit more edgy. Now on this particular music, that I've given that 1 star, okay, and I'm going to give the Qobuz stream 2 stars. So to my ears, it's a bit brighter, it's a little bit more edgy. It didn't have anything better than the stream, if you like. And often buying a physical CD is better than streaming something. But I think in this case, because the music is so dense, and it is verging on very edgy and gritty kind of thing, then that extra brightness of the CD wasn't beneficial, I think, in this case. Okay, so if you've heard it on CD, there is more to come. Okay, if that's the only way you've heard it, it's still a beautiful, in a very dark way, album. There's no question about that. Okay, now we're going to get on to the on disc 3 of this, which is a Blu-ray, the 2496 version. So the Blu-ray version, it is. I'm sure it's the same file as what's streaming over Qobuz. So really, here we've got a sort of a face-off between your system's streaming ability versus its playing back over local kind of physical media, even if that physical media's a file on a hard drive. So physical media, if you know what I mean. But in my situation, I think there is more depth of soundstage and there's more colour. So it's not quite as edgy. There's more expression in the vocal, and there's not quite as much sort of sheen, glossy kind of sheen over everything, and a little bit more bass depth. Now, I say all this, and you might be thinking, oh, well, that sounds a lot better. Now, don't get me wrong. This is small increments in sound quality here. So I think the CD is bettered by the 2496 stream, but it's not night and day. It's just it's degrees of the same. Okay. And that kind of covers all the digital versions. So, yeah, I think if you really like the music, I would suggest, and you're digital only, or of course you like myself, I play analog and digital media, and really I've got digital primarily for the car, to be perfectly honest. In the home, I don't really play digital out of choice, but. Either buy this deluxe CD set, specifically in my case for that 2496 file, or you can actually purchase that file from Qobuz. I think it's £6 or £7, and download it, which will give you that. I think that very, very slight edge over actually streaming it and playing it, on the fly, so to speak. Anyway, so now I'm going to get onto the vinyl. I'm going to put that one there, and we're going to get onto the vinyl. So the first one I played was the regular Miles Showell release, which is the regular black version here. And I'll just I'll show you the inner sleeves again, because they do vary. So here we've got a black inner sleeve, and I do this with all my vinyl. I take them out of the unlined inners and put them into a nice inner. Here we go. This in the run out groove, Miles Abbey Road, room 30. And whilst it doesn't specifically say so, I do believe this is half speed mastered, because I believe all Miles Showell's cuts are half speed mastered these days. I might be wrong on that though, but anyway, I don't think so. So I played this one next, and I'm going to give this 4 stars. Okay, so the sound stage of this, I would say, is bigger than the digital, and it really is. It's as I said, there's so much going on. It is a very, very dense mix, and this does sort of unpick that a little bit and spread it out, and that I do think is beneficial even over the 2496 stream. There's more space specifically in those synthesized strings. The bass has got more weight, and there's more sense of timing and space in the song structure, if you like, almost the architecture of the music. In the opening track alone, there's you've sort of got this dum 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 dum, and then that's the sort of overriding theme, if you like, or repeating kind of rhythm. And then there's this sort of piano, ching, 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 which kind of cuts through it. It's much more melodic and it's harmonious, but it's very low in the mix. But it's that has got more space around it. Now, compared with the digital mixes, as I say, the bass has got more weight. But this is the thing that I mentioned in my previous video, and in fact pretty much every video that's featured a Miles Showell half-speed mastered cut, is the bass has got this sort of over full fatness, and I've described that before, and it's kind of an over full fatness compared with all the digital versions. But you might like it. I think it'll depend very much on your speakers and your system. So if your speakers are small bookshelf speakers, they probably go down to about 50, 60, 70 hertz, and then start rolling off quite rapidly. Now on this, if you can imagine the bass is sort of like in a vessel like this, and frequency is here vertically. So this is sort of like 20 hertz down here, maybe 100 hertz up here. So how the mild Showell cut sounds is you've got your bass and it's all very nice. It kind of comes down and then it's sort of woof. And it doesn't really go much lower than, I would guess, about 50 hertz. And instead of going lower, what it does is it just sort of pulls up and fills out. So you get this sort of unnatural kind of fatness at a certain frequency in the bass. And it's sort of overblown, fat, sort of, as I say, if you've got a small bookshelf pair of speakers, you might find that coincides with where the speaker's natural roll-off is and helps to sort of give the impression of an extended bass. But it's, I would, my gut feeling is, and what my ears tell me, it's not an extended bass. It's an bass that goes down so far and then just floods sideways, so to speak. And that characteristic is there. You'll notice, as I said, I give this 4 because it has got more space, and I think in a way for me the most important thing is more kind of musical architecture over the original. It's sort of like the, boom, 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 boom is one thing, and then this ching, 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 and the voice, and all these little elements are sort of swishing and moving around. They're kind of playing together. They're singing from the same song sheet, so to speak. On the digital versions, it's all a little bit more of a mush. And so, but bear that in mind, because that's something we're going to get back to as I talk about other versions, okay? The only other thing I will say about this one is when the vocal comes in, it's nice and solid, but it's kind of slightly plastic, I would say, and it doesn't feel like it's pulling out from the background. And one of the things about the sound stage of this is it's quite flat, a huge wall of sound. And I actually bought a Gerald Scarfe illustration yesterday. Found one in a charity shop, an original signed one. And talking about Gerald Scarfe, if you think of the Pink Floyd The Wall images, and there's one image where he's got a face sort of screaming, and it's almost like you've got a plastic or a rubber sheet, and this face is sort of kind of pushing out through it, and you've got the, it's not pulling out from the background. I don't know if you know the image I mean. I'll flash one up if I can find one, just to sort of try and illustrate that. But it's sort of like the voice is, you can hear the words, the shape of it, etc. It's reasonably solid. It's quite holographic in a way, but it doesn't. It feels like it's held in the background wallpaper. It doesn't pull away. You can't kind of see round it. So that's the Miles Showell 1 LP, basically the regular cut. Now I'm going to get onto the Miles Showell 2 LP version. And this is the version we haven't listened to before, or I didn't mention in the last video. So how does it sound? Right, well, I mean, right from the word go, it is much wider, much deeper. The bass definitely does go deeper on this one. Although I will say that there is still that characteristic sort of, whereas on the regular Miles Showell cut, the bass kind of came down to, around about 50 and then just fills up, spreads out. This one sort of comes down and it does that, but there is some continuation of it down, okay? So it's better, without a shadow of a doubt, in that respect of the bass. But it's much, much better in terms of the architecture of the music and the sort of the loud to soft, and the levels in between, the shades of grey, if you like. Much, much, much better. And in that respect, I think it's a huge leap forward. There's more detail. You can start to hear the guitars more clearly, which are kind of quite buried in the mix on the other version, and also the digital versions. And the vocal also does sort of pull away from the background, so it's almost like that rubber sheet that the face is behind. You know, I think going back to that Gerald Scarfe image, it's almost like the rubber sheet has snapped off. But we'll get back to this when I talk about the next one. It is still almost like it's got a plastic sheen over it. So, you know, think of that. Not that there isn't the rubber sheet there, but this rubber sheet is detached from the background and sort of wrapped around the head, if you like. I mean, sonically, it is a big upgrade over the single LP version. It really is. But then there's an awful lot of information on this, and to fit it onto one single LP is asking a lot. So it's no surprise that this sounds a lot better. So the bass, you know, the bass, the drums, the piano, the weight, the texture, the timbre of everything is better. It really is very, very, very good. And I wasn't entirely certain at all whether it was going to better or not the Bernie Grundman, and I've had to play those two backwards and forwards a lot over this last week to try and get my head around exactly what's going on. Okay, now we get on to the Bernie Grundman one. Now, I believe in other countries there might be, you know, the Bernie Grundman cut might have been used for more regular releases, but in the UK certainly this is what they call the retail exclusive. And I got this from my local record shop, Raves and the Grave, and I did check yesterday, and yeah, they've still got them, and as far as they're aware, they're still available. So, you know, but I don't think you can get these online, or at least you might be able to get them online from a bricks and mortar record shop. I'm not quite sure of how they're being distributed, but I couldn't find this on the Cure website, which is where I got the rest of them from. Now, the first thing, you know, again, I will just show you this actually, because as I said, on the other one, it was a black lyric sheet, and on here, you've kind of got a stone coloured lyric sheet. And it does say on the lyric sheet, cut by Bernie Grundman. It's, you know, they're all clearly delineated what the differences are. And this one, like the double album, you get a poster that folds out in four ways. You get a poster, which is you know, kind of cool. I'm a bit outgrown putting posters on the walls these days, but it's, you know, it's a notable and nice thing to have. And then I think, as I showed you earlier, but I'll show you again, the vinyl here is grey marbled vinyl. Now, the first thing sonically you'll note when you put this one on and compare it with any of the others, it is noticeably quieter. So I think you probably have to turn it up about 5 or 6 decibels to get the same volume level. But of course, in cutting it quieter, what Bernie's done is he's chosen not to sort of, you know, go for the loudness war, and what that does is it opens up the sound dramatically. Now I'll cut to the chase. This one is still my favourite, and it's my favourite by quite a way. I think I mentioned 4 stars for the 1 LP Miles Showell. I'm going to give 5 stars for the 2 LP Miles Showell, and I'm going to give I'll probably give it 8 stars really for the Bernie Grundman. Now, it's quieter, so you've got to turn the volume up further. But what else are you hearing? What are you hearing in the Grundman over the 2 LP Showell? So the first thing is the space. It's 3-dimensional. It's way, way, way deeper, the sound stage. It's deeper, it's wider, and it's you've got all the elements there, but it's what goes on between those elements. On all the other versions, digital or analog, and of course this will be a digital recording, a digital mix. So on all the other versions, what's between those sort of elements, the guitars, the bass, the drums, the keys, etc., the vocals, it feels like there's a digital kind of a greyness and opacity. The air has a density, if you like. Whereas on the Bernie Grundman, it really feels analog, or it feels more analog. The space is deeper, the air between things can breathe, kind of thing. The strings aren't they don't feel like they've been plasticized, like I was trying to describe about Robert Smith's voice, and the analogy with the Gerald Scarfe Pink Floyd image, of Pink. I think the character is sort of screaming out of a rubberized background kind of thing. The bass on this doesn't have that, any of that fatness that sort of is the, it feels like you're filling up a reservoir of waffle. It just drops deep and growls, and that is a big benefit. And this is the version of this where this happens, to my taste and to my ears the best. So the bass is the deepest, and it's got the most sort of growly texture. That piano I talked about in Alone, where you've got like sort of ching 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 kind of thing. It's just, the piano feels more piano-y. The timbre of it is more like a piano, and it feels more separate. The air between that and the rest of the mix feels more transparent, and you can hear the guitars clearer. I think on several of these guitars, it's hard to pick them out unless they're doing a lead solo. It's hard to pick them out within the mix, and there are just more details in this. And then the vocal is more separate. It's more 3D. It's more there's more expression, and it is, again, going back to that same analogy of Pink, if you like, coming out of the wall. In this one, it's like you haven't got that rubber thing. It's able to breathe and express, and with all the anguish and angst and desperation and passion, you can kind of feel it and hear it. Negatives on this, I mean, there are some negatives. Obviously, I think, a double LP Bernie Grundman cut would have been the ultimate, or maybe something else, which I'll get onto later. But it's not perfect. The more saturated aspects of this do sound saturated, but they kind of almost sound like a tape saturation. It's not offensive and graty and as gritty as they are on some of the other versions. Okay, so as I say, I'm going to give this 8 for its score, which is so far the best. And then last but by no means least, we come to the cassette. Now, I have to point out that, I had to get my cassette deck. I've got a couple of cassette decks, and they reside in the understairs. Well, one's in the loft, one's in the understairs cupboard. And the one I pulled out is a Nakamichi BX100. Now, Nakamichi back in the day were like the Rolls-Royce of cassette decks. And back at the time when the BX100 was a current model, I was actually working in hi-fi retail, but it didn't, it wasn't available within my budget. So I bought that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and I think I only paid £150 for it. And it's kind of, almost as new boxed condition it was. So, it's a nice cassette tape, but it's by no means state of the art, okay? Now, this is cute and cool and everything else, and I only really bought this because it was, it was part of a package, because I'd already got several of the items already. I think I bought the double LP, the double cassette, because the other tape in this is the instrumental, and then the triple digital disc version I think I got as a package for £60 or £61, something like that. So there was a discount in buying the lot, so I bought the lot. But anyway, bearing in mind what this is playing on, I would say, for me, I've given this 5 stars, which is the same as the double LP version. And that might come as a heck of a surprise to some people, because, the double LP version I was playing on my highly tuned vinyl rig. So for a £200 cassette deck to equal it, that's really interesting. Whilst I've given this the same score as the double LP Miles Showell cut, it doesn't sound the same. It sounds different, but the reason it's got the same score is because whereas it sounds worse in many respects, it also sounds better in many respects, and that's what I want to try and get across. So I think as an overall picture, this is the closest to the Bernie Grundman. Now, it's not as open, It's not as spacious. It's not as dynamic. It doesn't go as deep in the bass. It hasn't got the weight. It hasn't got the textures. But it's basically essentially the same. And if you look at a three-dimensional picture of the soundstage, there is depth, there is width. The bass doesn't have that fattening like the Miles Showell cuts. The strings are very, very, very nice. The voice is nice. The flow, the musical flow, if you like, is definitely second to the Grundman. But overall, it's like a smaller, compressed version of the Bernie Grundman cut, whereas the others do sound quite different, if you see what I mean. And it doesn't have, if I look at my notes on the 2 LP Miles Showell cut, it doesn't have the shades of light to dark. I mean, that's probably where the biggest compromise is on this cassette, versus any of the other versions in that respect. It doesn't have that openness and the detail and everything, but it is like a sort of a warm, cozy, smaller picture of the same that the Grundman is. Okay. Now, what I find interesting, this is listed as being mastered by Matt Colton. The digital version's being listed as mastered by Matt Colton. Now, Matt Colton works at Metropolis Mastering, and I strongly suspect he made the original master, which was then sent to Bernie Grundman, or in fact to a chap called Brian Lucy, who did a pre-master for the Grundman one, and Miles Showell, who did the 2 Abbey Road cuts. Now, Bernie Grundman is a very well-renowned, highly regarded mastering engineer, and I think a cutting engineer. And I think from hearing this tape and hearing the Bernie Grundman, the fact that they sound so similar, it makes me feel that this is probably closer to the intent, if you like, of Matt Colton's intent, because this will be, cassettes are, they're almost certainly sort of high-speed duplicated. It's a very narrow tape, and it's a very, very slow speed of tape compared with reel-to-reel, for example. But if he was to take that digital master and put it onto reel-to-reel tape, that was the thing I was saying about, why this doesn't get 10 out of 10, the Bernie Grundman, because it is still squashed onto one disc, and I think it would be better if it wasn't. And I think that this gives a glimpse of something very, very, very lovely. So I'm going to actually put in my order of rankings, okay? In first place, we've got the Bernie Grundman. Now, in second place, I'm actually going to put the cassette. And you can buy the cassette as a single cassette, not just this double cassette thing. And the single cassette from the Cure website is £9. I mean, that is so cheap, in my opinion. That is so cheap for something that's so good. Now, obviously, who's got a cassette deck these days? Not many people. I mean, I had to dig mine out, and having dug it out and put this in, I was like, oh my word, that was really enjoyable. If you have the ability to play a cassette for £9, I think this is just marvelous. It's not the best sounding, but I'm actually going to put it for musical enjoyment in second place. And in terms of bearing in mind, everything about this is a very deep, very dense, very dark, quite gritty, dirty mix. In terms of which one sounds the nicest, okay, I think that probably is the nicest sounding version of this music. That doesn't mean to say the best. It definitely doesn't mean to say the best, but possibly the nicest, okay? £9 for the cassette. If you want to hear it with the, instrumental version too, it's £17 for the double cassette. So again, I think that's a really, really, really good deal. Okay. Next up, I'm going to have the double Miles Showell version. Now this I got from the Cure website, and it was £32. And for a double LP, I know I picked a little at the cover because it's not as black The contrasts are all a bit washed out compared with the single LP covers. As I say, you get two, whereas on the Grundman you've got a very light grey, and on the single one you've got a black. On here you've got a third variety of inner sleeves again, and you get the poster. So this is a good issue. If you can't find the Bernie Grundman, get this one. Okay, it's really good, and it's a pretty big upgrade over the standard version. Next is the standard LP version, which is £25 on the Cure website. And again, it's, as I mentioned, it's one LP cut by Miles Showell. You can see there you've got black inner sleeves rather than the grey or the very light grey, and no poster, but it has that Miles Showell kind of, you know, thing. But if you don't find that annoying, and I think that's there on all Abbey Road half-speed master cuts. So if you've got smaller speakers, you know, it may actually be enhancing it from your perspective in your system. So it's not an all-round bad thing. And the digital version, I mean, this Deluxe CD is £21. And I think that's probably worth getting it for that, because you've got the 2496 file in there. You've also got a CD of the instrumental version, and you've got the, I mean, if you buy this, I don't see any point in playing the regular CD at all. I would just play the, well, if you can, play the Blu-ray, play the 2496 version on the Blu-ray. Obviously, there's the Dolby Atmos mix, which I haven't, it's irrelevant to me. I don't have a Dolby Atmos system. I will get along to a friend who does and make sure I have a listen to that soon, but I won't be doing a video on it, to be honest. Well, unless it absolutely blows my socks off. But that's £21, and the regular single CD version is £11. And I think in terms of the regular CD, I think I would rather just buy the download from Qobuz, or even just stream it. Okay, I mean, you might be able to buy the download from anywhere, other places other than Qobuz. I don't know, but you know, that's where I can get it. Okay, so that's pretty much my reckoning. So having listened to 7 different versions of this, I think. So look, stream, CD, 2496, 1 LP Miles Showell, 2 LP Miles Showell, Bernie Grundman, and the cassette. Yeah, 7 different versions of the same album. Still, for me, the one that wins is the Bernie Grundman, and that beats the Miles Showell 2 LP, which beats the Miles Showell 1 LP, which beats the CD, and the real surprise in here for me is the cassette, which I'm totally surprised. I mean, it just sounds, it doesn't have the dynamics and the openness and all the rest of it of the others, but it sounds kind of less confused. You know, there is one way of looking at it, that it sounds better than the Grundman, and that's what I mean about I'd love to hear this recorded to you know, 15" per second, 1/4" tape, if that was ever. Yeah, Robert Smith, if you're listening to this, why not do it? Some companies do, you know. It would be mind-blowing, I think. Okay, so look, I hope that was useful to you and you enjoyed it, and thank you very, very, very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Cheers. Bye now. Bye.